This presentation, titled The Leaning Tower of Non-Conformance and Auditee's Perspective, comes to us from Wendy Edwards. Wendy has more than 30 years of experience as an auditor, consultant, and in-house quality professional, specializing in high and low-risk food industries. She's currently the head of food safety and quality for a New Zealand-owned business which employs 1,500 people across three countries and generates revenues of around $300 million New Zealand per annum. Their manufacturing operations in New Zealand and Australia are SQF certified and export food to around 18 countries. In 2019, Wendy was recognized by SQFI as the SQF Practitioner of the Year. And with that, take it away, Wendy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mike. Look, it's a bit of a quick presentation today and just something a little bit different. We really just have something a bit odd to ponder. It has a strange title, The Leaning Tower of Non-Conformance. And what on earth do we mean by that? I'm hoping it will all become clear. And really, this is just a reflection piece. So the question we're going to think about is, when should you consider during an audit those questionable corrective actions becoming an audit non-conformance? So you'll think about the ones that we're talking about, you'll know what I mean as we talk on through. So this just started off as a casual chat. Here we are, appropriately distancing, having an internet over Zoom, chattering about corrective actions. And sometimes you see fabulous corrective action when you're auditing, good root cause analysis, people fix problems. You can see, the number of incidents are coming down. They're doing a really great job. However, there's this old chestnut, and you'll know it well, I'm sure, where you go along and somebody says, well, we fixed the problem because what we did was we brought it up at the team meeting, we retrained everybody, and we told them not to do it again, and that will solve the problem. And I know, inevitably, that problem is going to come back because the corrective action is not effective. So this is the type of corrective action we're talking about. When should you call it? So we carried on chatting, and as you do, there was this random ad comes up for air travel and the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and we got thinking, auditors, too much time on their hands. Just imagine traveling in time and going back and being the auditor that was there doing this on the day. Imagine that audit, and things just got a little out of hand at that point. But I thought, Mike, you might enjoy hearing what we had to say. So what we were doing was saying, let's just go back to the beginning. So here we are, and it's the 9th of August, 1173. They've whipped up a couple of layers right at the beginning. And there you are with your QA manager having a chat about how lovely this little tower is looking. And the thing to remember is you're here doing their first ISO audit. This tower is not the feature piece. This is just a little piece on the side of a larger project. So not particularly important in the big scheme of things, but, it was going to look great when it was done and somewhere to hang the bell. So you can do your audit. It's looking great. They've had some subcontractors in, done a bit of groundwork, built a couple of layers, and you issue their ISO certificate. Brilliant. Fast forward 5 years on, you're back doing a recertification audit. You're standing there with the QA manager and you go, I can see there's a bit of a problem. So the QA manager explains to you that actually there was a bit of a design flaw with the foundations and the subcontractors didn't quite get it right. And so what's happened is that there's been some subsidence and the tower's got a bit of a lean on. They're not quite sure what they're going to do with it. So what they're going to do is they're just going to pop it on hold and then have a chat about what they're going to do to fix it. Okay. About 100 years from when it was built, there was a wee pause. Turns out it was a non-conforming project for quite a wee while. They got distracted. Lots of other fun things happened. However, you turn back up to do your audit and you're having a chat to the QA manager and he's taken it on board with the engineer and they say, look, okay, here we go. We're ready. We're going to carry on building. We've worked out the corrective action. See, what we're going to do is we're going to build one side of this tower shorter than the other. Now, I'm not kidding. This is actually the solution that they came up with. So you may or may not be aware that the tower is actually shorter on one side than the other. So the steps are odd. This was their way of correcting this bit of a lean that was going on. So interesting corrective action. Wonder what you'd be thinking as the auditor. Is this something you'd be happy with? Okay. So I just want to point out a health and safety moment. Here are the auditors sitting on the non-leaning side of the tower. So anyone that was getting alarmed about where the auditors were standing before, we've moved them to this side. So we're all good. 200 years from when we built the tower. You come back, well, your colleagues come back, and they do another audit, and the corrective action hasn't worked. It's not effective. We've actually got quite a lean going on. So you're standing there thinking, okay, so we've continued with it. The outfit that's doing the tower building has made the decision about the corrective action. Was the corrective action effective? I can imagine what they did was got the subcontractor in and said, it's not very good. We'll bring it up at the morning meeting. We'll retrain everybody. And we told them not to do it again. Interesting. So come along the 1990s, and we've moved from trying to accept the lean as it is to realizing this is now getting quite unsafe. So we do a bit of risk mitigation. And what they've done actually is they've just cleared out anybody in the fall zone so that if anything happens and the tower falls over, nobody will get hurt. Brilliant. Just want to point out the auditor's still standing to the left of the lean. So this is the unfolding of an ineffective corrective action over time. So if I could pop you in a time machine and take you back to that moment where you were standing there talking to the QA manager and you go, she's got a bit of a lean on, what are you thinking you might do? If they were to tell you that they had two options, rip it down and rebuild it, but they didn't think that was appropriate. So what they were going to do was build the tower one side shorter than the other. Where would you be leaning as an auditor? Would you be thinking, okay, so it's 100% your call? Is it something where you would be tempted to put an observation in your report and suggest perhaps, this was a little bit ineffective? What would your thinking be at that point in time? Curious. So at this point, I'm thinking, what does that look like today? How does that translate to this type of things that you see in the modern environment? So here we are in our time machine. We've all forgotten what these look like, but this is an aeroplane. So we've woofed forward in time, and here we are, and we're doing a local audit in the here and now. So in this instance, I'll be now the auditee, and you can be the auditor. So you come in to see me, and I have a prioritised plan for continuous improvement. I have a limited wodge of dosh that the company has very kindly provided. I've done some analysis. You can see my lovely graph on the bottom left of the screen. I've worked out how many sorts of problems I have, and I've done a good risk assessment against how likely they are, the consequence they will be. And based on all of this, I've put together a prioritised plan for continuous improvement. The thing that I've chosen to work on is the thing that has the biggest impact for my business on the basis of the decisions that I've made. So that's the big old graph there on the left-hand side. However, as an auditor, you've found that this little thing that happens down here, which isn't such a big of a deal, doesn't have such a big likelihood consequence on my business, but is technically a non-conformance, is an audit non-conformance. And you know that when you look at what I'm doing in this area, because I have prioritized my resources in this particular way, I've chosen to do ineffective or not brilliant corrective action for these types of problems. So if I was making lots of widgets and I get, 500 complaints on the big red bar, I only get 30 on this little thing down here, they're not critical, I decide to live with it. My corrective action is probably brought it up at the team meeting, told them not to do it again, and gave everybody training. As an auditor, where are we sitting here? Is it appropriate to redirect the resource into that issue that is technically a non-conformance when you know that there is work going on this bigger problem where really good corrective action and root cause is going on? The question being, when should those questionable corrective actions actually become an audit non-conformance? So there's always going to be this perfection versus pragmatic approach here. And I guess the key is finding that balance. But without considering it previously, I'm not sure I really had thought about where that balance might be. So the point of our conversation then was the question, next time you face this, that moment in time where you have an opportunity to let them bring it up at the morning team meeting, tell them not to do it again, retrain everybody, or challenge the effectivity of their corrective action, which way will you lean? Back to you, Mike.
Well, thank you, Wendy Edwards, for that very thought-provoking look at the Leaning Tower of Non-Conformance. And that concludes this presentation.